That is right, CAA football fans. The dynamic duo is back. In case you forgot, which I don't know how you could, I'm Bobby Broyles, joined by my colleague, Mr. CAA football guru himself, Tim McDonald. Tim, missed you, buddy. How's your summer been?
The summer's been good. I actually went to your wedding. Lovely, lovely wedding. Just happy how far we've come in a year. You're lonely and single, and now, I hope that doesn't change you, though. So
No, I feel a little older.
Yeah. Well, just think, I'm ready for the season to start.
Absolutely. It is indeed great to be back in the saddle here at CAA Football as we begin today with our annual team-by-team preview leading up to the start of the season. Let's start our 12 teams in 12-day series with CAA Football newcomer, the Elon Phoenix. We've been anticipating their arrival in the league for a long time now since the announcement of their departure from the SoCon, where Elon played pretty stiff competition like Appalachian State and Georgia Southern. Tim, how do you see Elon adjusting to CAA football?
Yeah, well, pretty broad question. I think it's hard because you look at Albany and you look at Stony Brook and just what they endured in their first season of CAA football. You hate to make comparisons, but it really is. You learn right away from the get-go. It's going to be a major week-to-week grind. You look at Elon, and like you said, the last three seasons they've had losing records in the SoCon. The SoCon's a pretty respectable conference. I know the SoCon itself is changing, Bob, but I do like the fact that CAA football, now we look up and down the coast. Now you have Elon. Talk about Elon just in general, the history of that program. They've been to the playoffs one time in 2009. That was the last time. Ironically, Bob, they lost to Richmond in Richmond. But Elon's a program, I think, a lot of new excitement around new head coach Rich Scorsi. I think just in general, you look at their roster, everyone is mid-Atlantic or northern region kids. I think it's just a great addition to CAA football. It's funny, we were doing 11 for 11 last year, or 12 and 12. We're going to keep adding more teams? I don't know, but I like it either way.
Well, we caught up with first-year head coach Rich Scorsi, and he addressed some of the challenges his team will face in their first year in the league.
Well, it's an interesting question. We looked at all our opponents, that we will play on film this spring and summer. But it's both ways too, So is it a disadvantage in some ways? Maybe. But as I said earlier, I do have a familiarity. I know of a lot of the head coaches and a lot of the assistants. Like I said, having spent a lot of time in the Northeast in my career, there's a lot of the coordinators I know and assistants that I know. So you kind of have an idea. And the coaching fraternity, it's a pretty close-knit one. But I look at it from our standpoint. Well, that's the same for us too, though. We're a new school and in the conference, so their familiarity with us and what we might do, it could play to advantage to our, on our part as well.
As you heard from Coach Scorsi, the Phoenix joined a new league this year, but also began that journey with a new head coach. He was an offensive coordinator for this team back in 2009 and 2010 and comes to the program after 3 seasons as offensive coordinator at Ball State. So to say the least, he's an offensive-minded coach, Tim. So what do you expect from this Phoenix offense?
Well, first you just look at the hire of Scorsi, and you say to yourself, really nice hire in terms of just familiarity with the program. He was there, an offensive line coach his first 2 years. Then, like you said, he turned into the offensive coordinator. And I think for the Phoenix, you look at what he did at Ball State. Yes, different players, different level of football, but you look at Ball State and their offense the last 2 years was outstanding. You're talking about not only tops in the MAC or near the top of the MAC, but top 15 nationally in a lot of offensive categories. You look at Elon's history when he was there as an offensive coordinator. Terrell Hudgens, a phenomenal wide receiver. Aaron Millette got drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, and Scott Riddle. Riddle was a kid who was a quarterback who left the SoCon as the all-time leader passer. Hudgens was the only NCAA player to ever record 1,000-yard seasons in 4 straight years. I think you just look at Scorsi and you say, yes, he's going to come in and bring, this no-huddle, this sling and go, and this Spider ZY banana type of offense, Bob. But I also think it's going to take time. I think the proof is going to be in the pudding at Elon. I know he has some playmakers who maybe everyone around CAA football isn't familiar with. Kier Brown, a guy who was a second-team All-SoCon performer last year for returning. Mike Quinn, who we think might be the starter. He's a quarterback who started 12 games last year, threw for 17 touchdowns. Just looking at some of the numbers, Bob, his first year in the SoCon, they averaged 291 passing yards. I think it's going to take time, but I think this Elon offense, once he gets the weapons and once things get going, I think they're going to be a force to reckon with.
Once again, head coach Rich Scorsi on what we can expect for the Phoenix offense.
A lot of people equate us with a spread team because we have thrown the ball well and we're a no-huddle team. But we're, you go back to our years at Elon, we had a great quarterback by the name of Scott Riddle. He still holds a ton of FCS records and Southern Conference records. Then we went to Ball State, and Keith Wenning, who's playing here now for the Ravens, he was a draft pick for them in this past draft, and he holds every record at Ball State. So we've been able to throw the ball well over the years, but there's that equation of the quarterback, and whether or not we have that guy in our program, I don't make any hesitancy. The quarterback is different for me. I don't look at him the same as I do the left guard, because in the success that I've been able to achieve, it's always been that position that's been the driving point of it. And we'll work hard every day to develop the best quarterback we can develop. But we've been throwing the ball. We're a no-huddle team. We'll set a pace to the game. You know, no-huddle, though, nowadays, right, that's the standard. You know, very few teams are huddle. I think we're a little unique in our no-huddle in that we're not always a fast team necessarily. You know, we have the ability to slow it down and play at the pace we want to play at, but you always have that threat to be able to play at a fast pace. So high-flying Phoenix, you know, time will tell that, but we are coming to work every day, and like I said, the quarterback position for us will you know, indicate, you know, how high-flying we end up being.
Now, as we take a look at the Phoenix schedule, they open up at Duke on ESPN3, and they can remain in the Carolinas to finish off their non-conference schedule with back-to-back games on the new American Sports Network with Charlotte at home and Coastal Carolina on the road. How important will it be for the Phoenix to get off to a great start before entering that conference season?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I hate to say again, let's reference what UAlbany and what Stony Brook did last year, but UAlbany really struggled in non-conference games last year. They did get their only win of the season. Stony Brook did a little bit better. I think you look at this game, and like you said, they stay in the Carolinas for the most part, except for that game at Coastal. They're staying in their home state, which is great. I love the game versus Charlotte, not only because Charlotte is a new program, but I think it's something that down the line you could look at and say, okay, maybe let's do a couple more home and home and stay in state. I also think you just look at this schedule and you say, okay, I'm glad as a CAA football fan that they're going out of their conference to play Coastal, who's a very good team, who was in the playoffs last year. You also start the season at Duke, Bob, which is going to be a tall task in itself. But then you say to yourself, okay, we got familiar, we stayed in our home state, now we're starting to play conference. They start with UNH, Bob, at home in their first year. We know Elon averaged over 8,000 fans per game. Road Stadium is going to be beautiful, and you know there's going to be a lot of expectations early, but it's a great way to start. Look at the CAA schedule, too. After UNH, Delaware, Richmond, Stony Brook. That's when the Phoenix will truly be thrust into the fire, as corny as that sounds, Bob. But get ready, battle down, because it's going to happen sooner than you think.
As mentioned, the Phoenix opened the 2014 regular season on the road versus ACC opponent Duke on Saturday night at 6 p.m. August the 30th and can be seen live on ESPN3.
And Bobby, don't forget, you can also catch up on camera action with a pair of Elon players that we got to know at Media Day. You can check it out on our Everyday is Saturday blog.
Tomorrow we continue our 12 teams and 12-day series as we preview the Rhode Island Rams as we get to hear from their new head coach, Jim Fleming. For Tim McDonald, I'm Bobby Broyles. We'll see you tomorrow right here on CAA.TV.